Sinaloa Cartel is an international crime organization among the most powerful drug trafficking syndicates in the world. Welcome to Escobar's World. Today we'll be looking at how the Sinaloa Cartel rules, its foundations and leadership inclusive. The Sinaloa Cartel origins can be traced to the Guadalajara Cartel, one of Mexico's largest crime organizations in the early 1980s. However, after the cartel was involved in the 1985 torture and murder of a U.S. drug enforcement agent, the U.S. and Mexican forces cracked down on the syndicate, and by the end of the decade it had broken into various groups, one of which was based in Sinaloa. That state was long involved in the illegal drug industry as home to marijuana and poppy crops, and it was also the birthplace of numerous drug traffickers, including Hector Luis Palma Salazar and Joaquin Guzman Loera, who was also known as El Chapo or Shorty. Powerful figures in the Guadalajara organization, the two men became leaders in the Sinaloa Cartel. Unlike other drug cartels, the Sinaloa Cartel has lasted the longest and was titled the most powerful drug cartel in the world by the U.S. Treasury Department and developed the most sophisticated business system. Being a decades-old and very successful criminal group, the Sinaloa Cartel's self-presentation is one of the buttoned-down criminals whose oppressive rule comes with predictability and some level of moderation. Indeed, a key hallmark of the Sinaloa Cartel has been a rather careful calibration of violence that imposes its domination in a form in which local politicians, businesses, and people can develop predictable coping mechanisms. Despite the imprisonment of its most notorious leader, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the Sinaloa Cartel remains a dominant force in the drug trade. The October 2019 DEA report describes the group as a prominent producer and trafficker of Mexico-based fentanyl into the United States. Understanding the Sinaloa Cartel rules is important to note that it does not have a hierarchical structure. El Chapo, El Azul, and El Mayo all maintain separate but cooperating organizations, while the cartel's operations in foreign countries and even within Mexico are often outsourced to local partners. El Chapo became the most visible head of the Sinaloa Cartel, although he was joined at the top table by El Mayo and Juan Jose Esparragoza Moreno, alias El Azul. Although he was arrested and sentenced to more than 20 years in prison in 1993, he continued to be a key figure in the cartel, and according to various reports, he gained full control of the organization in 1995. Possibly fearing extradition to the United States, Guzman escaped from prison in 2001. In 2014, Guzman was apprehended in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, Mexico, but the following year he escaped from prison through a tunnel. However, that changed following El Chapo's recapture and later extradition to the United States, which sparked an internal battle for control of the organization, as evidenced by a February 2017 attack against El Mayo and two of El Chapo's sons that was reportedly orchestrated by El Chapo's one-time right-hand man, Damaso Lopez Nunez, alias Licenciado. However, El Licenciado and his son, Damaso Lopez Serrano, alias Mini Lick, have both been arrested and are now in U.S. custody. Given that El Chapo's conviction in the United States in 2019 landed him in prison for the rest of his life, El Mayo, the only remaining member of the Sinaloa Cartel's old guard, and El Chapo's sons, Joaquin Guzman Lopez, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, Ivan Archivaldo, and Jesus Alfredo, who are also known collectively as Los Chapitos, are now left to head the general direction of the cartel's operations while it retains its horizontal structure. If you're wondering what the Sinaloa Cartel has its hands in, well, it's everything. The cartel's primary business is smuggling and distributing cocaine from South America, mainly Colombia, marijuana from Mexico, methamphetamine and fentanyl from Mexico, and heroin from Mexico and Southeast Asia into the United States. Until recently, China supplied most of the fentanyl marketed in the United States, but that has changed because of stricter international regulations in 2017 and a Chinese crackdown in 2019. Although shipping fentanyl directly has become more dangerous, China remains the world's leading manufacturer of the precursor chemical. Meanwhile, the cartel saw an opening to enter the market as intermediaries. Thanks to its well-established network, the Sinaloa Cartel had a formidable infrastructure in place to grow into synthetic drugs. A DEA memo made public by Blue Leaks depicted a well-organized network encompassing border warehouses and distributors all over the U.S. The profit margins they get out of it is by synthesizing plus refining the product into its consumable form, explained Falco Ernst, senior Mexico analyst at International Crisis Group in Mexico. Cartels frequently subcontract logistics and money laundering to separate networks despite their public image as vertically integrated businesses. With major headquarters in Mexico City, Tepic, Toluca, Zacatecas, Guadalajara, and most of Sinaloa, the Sinaloa Cartel has a presence in at least 22 of Mexico's 31 states. The subject of extortion is brought up. They're referred to as polite extortionists in their extortion operations. Even when it comes to extortion, the Sinaloa Cartel has a reputation for predictability and moderation of violence. During the war among the Sinaloa and Tijuana cartels and their local proxies, as well as smaller independent criminal groups, life was very difficult. You had to pay extortion to many groups. All the time, someone was showing at your door and threatening to burn down your business, kill your family. The prices were going up and up just about weekly, and if one group found out you had paid their rivals, they would also threaten you and your family, even though there was no way to resist. I was considering just selling all my restaurants, but now that Sinaloa won, things are good. You need to pay just once, not weekly, only monthly. The fee has gone down. It's all easy. They are polite, and they keep the health inspectors and government tax people who used to harass us and ask for hefty bribes away from our neck, said a restaurateur to Vanda Felba Brown in Mexico. A businessman in Baja California Sur told Vanda Felba Brown in November 2021, the Sinaloa Cartel continues to systematically seek to take over the entire vertical chain of many economies in Mexico, and not just illegal ones. Most of the big hotels in Cabo San Lucas pay Sinaloa, but it's much better than before, 2015 to 2018, when CJNG was fighting Sinaloa over the control of Baja Sur. The payments now are very predictable, and the collectors from the Sinaloa Cartel polite and calm. It's very civilized dealing with them, and you don't have to pay once a week and crazy sums, just every few months at a reasonable rate. The Sinaloa Cartel's long-term viability is contingent on its leadership style. The Sinaloa Cartel has worked hard to create political capital with various stakeholders, including companies, social influencers like priests, legislators, the armed forces, government officials and institutions, and local people. Sinaloa's acceptability to those who must live under its authority has been based on its moderation of violence and reasonableness in terms of extortion rates. The Sinaloa Cartel has also given local companies and residents other services, such as keeping government tax collectors and inspectors at bay. The Sinaloa Cartel continues to impose authoritarian, unaccountable dominance reinforced by violence, regardless of where it is present in Mexico. However, for those who must live with it because they have no trustworthy security from the Mexican government, the Sinaloa Cartel's reign is considerably preferable to the ongoing deadly conflict among criminal gangs. It's also less disruptive of daily life than many other criminal organizations in Mexico, notably Sinaloa's main opponent, the CNJG, which is significantly more unpredictable and outspoken. It ultimately comes down to choosing the lesser of two evils. Even with El Chapo in jail for life, the Sinaloa Cartel has remained one of Mexico's most powerful organized crime groups. We believe the days of big cartels in Mexico may be numbered in looking at future prospects. As the country's criminal landscape continues to grow more fragmented, it's unclear if and how traditional cartels will be forced to adapt. This brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click on the bell icon for notifications.